Level 1, the pilgrim. You kneel in the dirt. Your knees are already bleeding. The cathedral bells ring none. The wooden cross splinters your palm. You clutch it anyway. Veteran crusaders walk past. They wear real mail. Real swords hang from their belts. You wear wool. Rough wool that scratches. Your feet are bare. The stones cut them. You pray anyway. You pray for forgiveness. For your father's soul. For your brother's debt. The debt that drove you here. Knights on horseback thunder past. Their hooves spray mud. It hits your face. You don't wipe it off. That would be pride. Pride is sin. You came here to wash away sin. To earn salvation through suffering. Through service to God. The recruiters promised paradise. They promised your family's debts forgiven. They promised your father's name cleared. You believed them. You had to believe them. You had nowhere else to go. The morning recruitment begins outside Saint Denis. You and 300 other pilgrims press against the cathedral steps. Most are younger sons with no inheritance. Some are fleeing crimes. Others flee debts they cannot pay. A few genuinely believe God called them here. You tell yourself you are one of those few. The recruiting sergeant, a man with scars covering half his face, climbs the steps. He wears the red cross of the crusading orders. His voice carries across the crowd without strain. Christ's holy land suffers under heathen rule. He calls. The roads to Jerusalem run red with Christian blood. The sacred sites lie defiled. Who among you will take the cross? Who will join Christ's army and reclaim what belongs to God? You raise your hand. So do most of the others. That is the easy part. The hard part begins immediately. They separate you into groups of 50. Veterans move through the lines, examining hands, teeth, the width of shoulders. They discard the obviously sick, the obviously weak, the obviously old. Your group shrinks to 30 men, then to 20. The veteran examining your line stops in front of you. His eyes are pale blue, almost colorless. He studies your hands. Calluses from farm work. That counts for something. He checks your teeth, mostly intact, your shoulders, broad enough to carry weight. You can march, he says. Question is whether you can fight when the marching stops. You nod. You have never fought anyone. The veteran knows this. They all know this. The next 3 weeks are spent in the pilgrim camp outside the city walls. You sleep on straw that is changed once every 7 days. You eat barley porridge twice daily. Sometimes there is cheese. Sometimes small pieces of salt pork. Never enough. Always hungry becomes your natural state. You learn to ignore the constant hollow ache in your stomach. You learn to move when they tell you to move. Stop when they tell you to stop. Pray when they tell you to pray. Prayer happens 6 times each day. Dawn, mid-morning, noon, afternoon, evening, night. You kneel on stone floors until your knees swell. You recite verses until your throat goes raw. You confess sins you have committed and sins you might commit. The chaplain, Father Benedict, has eyes like black stones. He speaks of Jerusalem as though he has walked its streets. Perhaps he has. He speaks of the infidels as though he has killed them personally. Perhaps he has. Your suffering here prepares your soul for greater suffering ahead, he tells the assembled pilgrims. Pain purifies, hardship sanctifies. Death in Christ's service guarantees salvation. You believe him because you need to believe him. Because your father died in debt and your family's name carries shame, and this is the only path to redemption offered to someone like you. The cycle continues. Level 2, the foot soldier. You march 20 miles a day, carrying a spear taller than yourself, your feet bleeding through cloth wrappings that used to be your only spare shirt. The sergeant calls formation before dawn. You fall in with 40 other men who smell like smoke and unwashed wool. Your stomach empties itself of yesterday's barley porridge within the first hour. You keep walking. The spear weighs 12 pounds. Your arm learns to lock at the elbow so the weight transfers through bone instead of muscle. The iron point catches morning light and throws it back at your eyes. You blink and keep the line straight. That is the correct answer. They give you a gambeson now. Quilted linen stuffed with horsehair that stops most arrows from punching clean through your chest. It traps heat against your ribs like a wet blanket. Sweat pools in the small of your back. The padding rubs your shoulders raw where the straps cross. You wear it anyway because the alternative is dying with holes in you. Your sergeant teaches you to march in formation. Left foot forward when he calls cadence. Spear vertical when you move. Spear horizontal when you stop. Turn your body as one piece when he calls the direction. Do not break the line. Do not drop your weapon. Do not speak unless spoken to. That is the correct answer. The other foot soldiers become your brothers by necessity. You share dried meat when someone's rations run short. You help splice broken spear shafts with strips of leather. When Heinrich gets dysentery, you carry his pack for 3 days until he can walk without stopping every quarter mile. When you get fever, he returns the favor. This is how you stay alive. Your hands develop permanent calluses where they grip the spear shaft. The wood wears smooth under your palms. You learn to sleep standing up during long halts, your weight balanced against the weapon like a walking stick. Your feet adapt to the constant walking. The bleeding stops, the skin hardens. You can cover ground that would cripple merchants. They feed you twice a day now. Barley soup with bits of salted pork, hard bread that breaks your teeth if you bite it wrong. You soak it in whatever liquid you can find. Sometimes there is cheese. Sometimes there are onions that make your eyes water and your mouth burn. You eat everything. Hunger becomes something that lives in your belly, like a sleeping animal. The chaplain holds service every 7th day. You kneel in mud that seeps through your leggings while he speaks Latin words that wash over you like rain. You mouth the responses you learned as a child. You make the sign of the cross when the others do. You think about home during the prayers, about your father's fields, about bread that was soft. That counts for something. You learn to kill by practicing on straw targets stuffed with rags. The spear point slides between ribs when you angle it correctly. You feel the resistance of fabric and padding give way. The sergeant corrects your stance. Feet wider, shoulders square. Drive with your legs. Withdraw fast before the enemy closes distance. Do this until your arms remember it without thinking. The first battle comes on a Tuesday morning when fog rises from marshland that smells like rotting eggs. You stand in the front rank, shoulder to shoulder, with men whose names you know. The enemy appears as shapes moving through gray air. Your bladder empties itself. Your hands shake on the spear shaft. The sergeant calls advance. You move forward because the alternative is being trampled by your own men. Afterward, you strip armor from the dead. Good mail shirts command premium prices from merchants who follow armies. You learn which wounds are worth treating and which men you leave for the ravens. You develop an eye for valuables hidden in clothing, coins sewn into belt linings, silver rings pressed deep into swollen fingers. The smell of blood becomes ordinary as bread. Your pay increases to 3 silver pieces per month. You send one home to your village. You keep one for necessities. You lose the third to dice games and camp followers who promise things they never deliver. The cycle repeats itself, month after month, battle after battle. Your name appears on muster rolls now. You exist in the records. That counts for something. Someone new joins your company. A boy who still has fat on his cheeks. He carries a spear he cannot properly hold. His feet bleed through cloth wrappings that used to be his only spare shirt. Level 3, the crossbowman. You carry 40 bolts. That is twice what the archers get. You oil the mechanism every morning. You check the string for fraying. You test the trigger pull 15 times before you sling it across your back. The weight sits different than a spear, higher, more balanced. Your hands know the rhythm now. Draw the string, set the bolt, aim, release. The bolt flies straight for 200 paces. That is farther than any archer can shoot. You can punch through mail at 100 paces. You can drop a charging knight if you hit the gaps in his plate. The sergeant assigns you to the 3rd rank, behind the spearmen, behind the archers. You wait for the cavalry charge. You wait for the siege towers. You wait for the moment when distance becomes your weapon and your curse. You spend your nights winding bowstrings by candlelight. The hemp fibers twist under your fingers. 32 strands for a war bow, 28 for a hunting bow. You know the difference by touch now. You wind them tight. You test the tension. You know that tomorrow men will die because your hands cramped on the third shot. Your fingers bleed from the string, not cuts, rope burn that goes down to bone. You wrap them in linen, the linen stains brown. You wash it in the stream with the other crossbowmen. The water runs red for 20 paces downstream. They give you a pavis shield, 6 feet of oak and iron. You plant it in the ground. You crouch behind it. You rest the crossbow on the notch cut into the rim. The enemy archers loose their volleys. Arrows thud into the wood. Some punch through. You feel the splinters against your cheek. You reload behind the shield. The windlass takes 30 heartbeats to crank. The battlefield changes in 30 heartbeats. Men advance. Men fall. Men scream orders you cannot hear over the ringing in your ears. You emerge from behind the pavis. You aim. You shoot. You crouch. You reload. The crossbow jams on the 4th shot. Sand in the mechanism. Blood on the trigger. You clear it with your eating knife. Your hands shake. The enemy is 50 paces away. 40. 30. You get one more shot. The bolt takes a man in the chest. He keeps running. The point caught his ribs instead of slipping between them. You drop the crossbow. You draw your sword. The blade is 18 inches long. The knight bearing down on you carries 4 feet of steel on a destrier that weighs more than 10 men. You plant your feet. You raise your guard. You remember what the weapon master taught you about leverage and timing and finding the gaps in plate armor. The knight rides past you. His lance takes the man to your left. The man screams once. The scream cuts off when the hooves find his chest. You turn to face the next charge. Your crossbow lies in the mud, 20 paces behind you. You will not reach it. You will not need it. After the battle, you collect bolts. The good ones. The ones that missed. The ones that went clean through and can be pulled free without damage to the point or fletching. You find 8 of your original 40. That is better than most crossbowmen manage. That counts for something. You clean your weapon by the cook fires. You oil the stock. You polish the steel. You restring the bow with fresh hemp. Tomorrow, there will be another battle, another charge. Another moment when your hands cramp and men die because you trained for war, but your body trained for 30 years of following a plow. The new recruits watch you work. They hold their crossbows like they might break. They ask about windlass technique. They ask about bolt selection. They ask about the best way to die. You tell them about hemp fibers and string tension and keeping their weapons clean. You do not tell them about the knight who rode past you. You do not tell them about the man who kept running with your bolt in his chest. Level 4, the man-at-arms. You wear mail that weighs more than your youngest brother, and the metal links have rubbed your shoulders raw in places that will never heal properly. The hauberk hangs to your knees when you stand still. When you move, it shifts, like a second skin made of iron. Your surcoat bears the colors of your lord now, red and gold thread that cost more than your father made in a season. Your horse is not a destrier. That is for knights. Your horse is a courser, 16 hands high, trained for war, but not bred for it. You sleep in the stables with him because someone might steal a war horse worth 12 oxen. The straw smells like home. The horse smells like the road. You know which hoofbeats belong to which rider in the dark. They call you by your name now instead of pointing. You have a place in the column when the army moves. 3rd rank, behind the knights, ahead of the foot soldiers. Your lance is ash wood, 12 feet long, with a steel point you keep sharp enough to shave with. You carry a sword your grandfather never could have afforded. The blade holds an edge that cuts mail rings like thread. You fight on horseback now. The ground looks different from up there, smaller. The faces of foot soldiers blur past like stones in a stream. Your lance finds gaps in armor you could not see from below. The impact travels up the shaft into your shoulder, into your spine. Your horse learns to step over bodies. You learn not to look at their faces afterward. Your lord knows your name. He speaks it when giving orders. You escort his daughter to morning mass. You ride beside his supply wagons on long marches. When bandits appear on the forest roads, you are the one who spurs forward first. Your sword clears the path. Your horse tramples what falls. The merchants pay your lord for safe passage. Your lord pays you in silver coins that bear the king's face. You eat meat every day now, beef when there is beef, pork when there is pork, mutton when the sheep grow old. You drink ale that does not taste like swamp water. Your boots are leather instead of wood and rags. They fit your feet. They do not split when it rains. Your belt holds a purse with coins that jingle when you walk. Your youngest sister writes letters you cannot read. The priest reads them to you. She married a miller's son. She has 2 children. She asks if you remember the songs your mother sang. You do not write back because you do not know how to tell her that you remember the sound of steel breaking bone better than you remember those songs. The other men-at-arms know which taverns serve wine instead of vinegar. They know which brothels check for French disease. They know which moneylenders charge interest that will not ruin you. You learn these things. You spend your coins on warmth and forgetting. You wake up in beds that are not straw. You wake up next to women whose names you sometimes remember. Your mail needs constant care. Every ring must be cleaned. Every link must be oiled. Salt rusts iron faster than rain. Sweat rusts it faster than salt. You spend hours with sand and rags, working oil into metal that keeps you alive. Your fingers crack from the cold metal in winter. Your hands smell like iron and pig fat until the day you die. When peasant boys look at you now, they see what they want to become. They see the horse. They see the sword. They see the colors you wear. They do not see how your shoulders slope forward from carrying weight that never comes off. They do not see how you sleep with one hand on your knife, because trust is a luxury for people who do not own things worth stealing. Level 5, the sergeant. You know 40 names by heart, not just names. You know that Willem favors his left shoulder since the arrow wound at Acre. You know that Peter's youngest son died of fever last winter, and he fights like he wants to join him. You know that Marcus can read Latin and keeps his knowledge quiet, because educated men get complicated assignments. You know that Jeffrey owes money to 3 different camp followers and will volunteer for anything that pays extra. You know these things because your life depends on knowing them. Your tent sits apart from theirs, but close enough to hear trouble starting. You eat the same salt pork and hard bread they do, but you get an extra ration of wine. Small privileges that mark the distance. They call you sergeant when anyone with rank is listening. They call you by your first name when it's just family. That's what this is now. Family. The kind of family where you choose who lives and who dies. The captain gives you objectives. Take that hill, clear that village, hold that ford until reinforcements arrive. He doesn't tell you how. That's your art. You look at 40 faces and decide which 10 go first through the breach, which 5 stay back with the wounded, which ones you send to fetch water, and which ones you send to fight. The ones you send for water might live to see their children again. The ones you send to fight might buy everyone else 10 more minutes. You've stopped sleeping through the night. Not because of the noise, the camp is never quiet anyway. Horses moving, men coughing, sentries walking their rounds. You wake because your mind won't stop working. You replay the day's decisions. You count the living. You consider tomorrow's orders and which names might not answer the morning roll call. Some nights you walk the camp perimeter, checking positions, making sure the watch rotation is solid. Some nights you just lie there, adding up the mathematics of violence. They trust you. That's the weight that settles on your chest every morning when you strap on your mail. 40 men wake up and look to you for the day's direction. They trust you to read the battlefield correctly. Trust you to know when to advance and when to withdraw. Trust you to remember that they have families waiting and that their lives mean something beyond whatever ground you're trying to take or hold. This trust feels heavier than the armor. You carry a better sword now. Steel that holds an edge. A leather grip wrapped with wire that won't slip when it's bloody. You can afford a proper whetstone and oil to keep the blade clean. Your mail is repaired promptly because a sergeant with broken links is a sergeant who makes poor decisions. You have coins to buy information from locals. Which roads flood in the rain? Where the enemy keeps his supplies? Which villages will trade and which ones will fight? Information costs money, but dead men cost more. The captain knows your name. Not just your rank, your actual name. When he has doubts about an order from above, he asks your opinion. When the battle plan looks like suicide dressed up as tactics, he finds you after the briefing and asks what you really think. Your words carry weight because you've proven you can keep men alive while accomplishing the mission. But having the captain's ear means other sergeants watch you carefully. They wonder if you're angling for promotion or just trying to do right by your men. The difference matters. Politics can kill you as efficiently as enemies steal. You write letters for the men who cannot write. You hold the hands of the ones who die slowly. You divide extra rations fairly and settle disputes before they become blood feuds. You are confessor and judge and brother and executioner. All of this happens in the narrow space between morning prayers and evening count. Someone has to hold this ground. Someone has to make these choices. A new recruit arrives in camp, 16 years old, and eager to prove himself in God's service. He doesn't understand that courage and stupidity look identical until the arrows start flying. He will learn. You will teach him, one way or another. Level 6, the Night Bachelor. Your spurs are silver now. Real silver, not the iron you wore as a squire. They catch the morning light when you walk across the bailey, and men step aside without being asked. Your sword has a name. Your shield bears arms, granted by the king himself. You own land that stretches beyond what you can see from your highest tower. The destrier beneath you is worth 800 marks. Pure Andalusian bloodline, trained for war since it was weaned. It knows the sound of steel on steel means to charge. It knows the smell of blood means to keep moving. It responds to the pressure of your knees because you have spent 3 years learning its language, and it has spent 3 years learning yours. When arrows fall like rain around your head, it does not flinch. When men scream and die 10 feet away, it maintains formation. You trust this animal more than your own brothers. Your mail hauberk weighs 60 pounds. Your helm restricts your vision to a narrow slit. Your lance is 12 feet of ashwood tipped with steel sharp enough to punch through a man's chest and out his back. You have done this 17 times in battle. You have done it 43 times in tournaments. The difference is that in tournaments, they usually live. You command a convoy of 8 mounted men at arms. They follow your banner into the press of battle. They depend on you to choose the right moment to charge. They depend on you to recognize when the line is breaking. They depend on you to lead them through the gap in the enemy formation or call the retreat before they all die for nothing. 4 of them have been with you for 2 years. The others are replacements. Your manor house has stone walls and glass windows. Real glass, not oiled parchment. Your hall can seat 40 guests at feast. Your kitchens can roast an entire ox. Your stables house 12 horses. Your armory contains weapons worth more than most villages see in gold their entire existence. Your wife wears silk imported from Constantinople. Your children have tutors who teach them Latin and Greek and mathematics. You have not slept in the same bed for more than 4 consecutive nights in 18 months. The king's summons arrives in winter. You owe him 40 days of military service each year. Sometimes it is 40 days, sometimes it is 8 months. Sometimes you return home to find your steward has been stealing from the harvest accounts, and your eldest son has been caught with the blacksmith's daughter, and your wife has been managing everything herself because there was nobody else. You know the weight of a man in full armor falling from his horse. You know the sound a skull makes when it hits stone from 12 feet up. You know how long it takes for someone to die from a gut wound if the blade was dirty. You know that most men call for their mothers in the final moments, not their wives or their sworn lords or their God. Your confession lasts 2 hours every Sunday. The younger knights watch how you hold your reins. They watch how you position your shield. They watch how you choose which enemy to target in the charge. They ask you about tournaments in France and battles in the Holy Land and whether the stories about the Saracen cavalry are true. They think your scars make you wise. They think your lands make you content. They think your reputation makes you sleep soundly. You teach them how to maintain their weapons. You teach them how to read a battlefield. You teach them which parts of a man's body will stop him fighting immediately and which parts will only make him angry. You do not teach them that every time you close your eyes, you see the faces of boys who looked exactly like them moments before you killed them. A new squire arrives at your gates, 15 years old, second son of a minor lord. He has spent 2 years learning to serve at table and care for arms and armor. He believes in honor and glory and just war. He asks when he might earn his spurs. You tell him to start with the horses. Level 7, the knight banneret. Your banner bears your arms now, not another man's colors. 50 lances follow where you lead, 250 souls whose wives know your name in their prayers. The herald announces you as Lord Banneret when you enter the pavilion where only those who hold land may speak. That counts for something. You own 3 manors now. The rents from 2 feed your war chest. The third keeps your household when you are not bleeding gold into campaigns that stretch longer than any lord promised. Your steward sends letters twice monthly. The harvest looks promising. The miller needs a new wheel. Your youngest daughter has begun her letters. You read these dispatches by candlelight in whatever tent serves as your quarters, calculating whether you can afford to keep your men in the field another month. The responsibility sits in your chest, like armor that never comes off. When the marshal assigns your company to the vanguard, you nod and say nothing. When he orders you to hold the left flank while better connected bannerets take the center where glory lives, you deploy your lances and prepare to bleed for ground that history will not remember your name upon. Your men watch, your face foretells. You give them none. You know each lance leader by his fighting style and his weaknesses. Sir Godwin favors his right side since the mace blow at Acre. Sir Marcus pushes too hard when the charge begins, leaving his flanks exposed. Young Sir Edmund still flinches at the sound of approaching cavalry, though he has learned to flinch forward instead of back. You place them where their strengths serve, and their flaws will not kill the men beside them. This is mathematics, written in blood. Your household knight captains bring you reports each evening. 12 destriers lame. 1 lance leader took a crossbow bolt through the shoulder, still fighting but favor that arm tomorrow. The Welsh longbowmen in your service used 400 arrows today, and recovered perhaps half that number. Your armorer needs more steel for repairs, and the nearest supply train is 5 days behind schedule. You make decisions with incomplete information because complete information is a luxury that exists only in the songs. The other bannerets watch you now, not as a peer, not yet, but no longer as someone they can dismiss. When the war council meets, your voice carries weight proportional to your lances. 50 lances means your opinion matters more than 30, less than 100. You have learned to speak only when your words can change outcomes, never merely to be heard speaking. Your body tells the story of 15 years under arms. Your left shoulder catches in cold weather where the Saracen spear found the gap in your mail. Your sword hand aches each morning until the blood warms it. You sleep 4 hours when you sleep at all, waking automatically before dawn to walk among your men and count who breathes easily and who coughs blood into their blankets. The mathematics of attrition live in your bones. You write letters to the families of the fallen. The same words every time, because there are no words that make the fact of death easier to carry, only words that acknowledge the weight of it. Served with honor, gave his life for God and King, will be remembered. You sign your name and seal with your ring and try not to calculate how many of these letters you have written, how many more you will write before this campaign ends. When enemy arrows darken the sky like a flock of iron ravens, you count heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. The sound when they strike shields and earth and flesh tells you everything you need to know. How many of your lances will ride home? How many letters you will write? How many wives will curse your name in their grief, even as they take the silver you send? Your banner flies above it all. 50 lances follow where you lead. That is what they see. What they cannot see is how you lie awake, calculating the cost of every order you have, given every choice that brought you to this place where other men's lives hang on your decisions. The cycle continues. Level 8, the military commander. You move colored stones across hand-drawn maps while scribes scratch numbers onto parchment. Red stones for your forces, black stones for the enemy, white stones for terrain features that matter. The stones are smooth river rock, worn by countless campaigns. Your fingers know their weight. When you slide a red stone forward, 500 men advance. When you remove one from the board, those men are gone. The tent smells of lamp oil and wet leather. Maps cover every surface. Vellum scrolls detail supply lines, troop movements, weather reports from advanced scouts. Your squire maintains the inkwell. Your chaplain keeps the casualty rolls. Your marshal tracks the horses. Everything flows through this canvas room that gets packed and moved every third day. You wake before dawn to read dispatches. Scouts report enemy movements. Supply trains report delays. Field commanders request reinforcements they will not receive. You dictate responses while breaking your fast on hard bread and watered wine. The chaplain reads morning prayers. You mouth the words while studying yesterday's losses. The numbers accumulate on parchment. 37 dead at the river crossing. 12 wounded beyond fighting. 43 missing, presumed captured or fled. You sign the reports with a quill that scratches like breaking bones. Each name represents a specific face. Guillaume, who asked about his wife's pregnancy. Marcus, who shared his rations during the siege. Thomas, who called you father when fever took his reason. Your armor bears no dents. You fight battles with wooden tokens now. Your sword stays sharp because you never draw it. Your shield shows no marks because arrows fall on other men. You wear mail beneath silk robes. The metal reminds you what hangs in the balance. The silk reminds everyone else what you have become. Field commanders bring you problems. Not enough arrows. Too many wounded. The Saracens hold the high ground. The water tastes of salt. You listen while manipulating stones on stretched hide. Move the cavalry here. Pull the archers back. Send the infantry through that gap. Each decision echoes across the battlefield like dropped rocks in still water. You receive reports through riders who arrive covered in dust and blood. Never your own blood. The enemy took the eastern ridge. Your left flank holds, but barely. The siege engines need repairs. You absorb information while eating meals that taste like ash. Victory and defeat arrive as words on parchment while you sit on carved wooden chairs. Your tent fills with lesser nobles who seek favor and position. They discuss strategy while drinking wine you provide. They argue over tactics they will never implement. They volunteer for commands they hope to survive. You assign roles based on maps they cannot read and logistics they do not comprehend. Their eagerness reminds you of yourself 10 years ago. The weight settles in your shoulders during long afternoons bent over charts. Your back aches from hours studying terrain features drawn by men who may be dead. Your eyes strain in lamplight that flickers with each gust of wind through tent flaps. You carry the faces of boys who trusted your judgment more than their own instincts. Letters arrive from your estate. The harvest looks promising. Your wife delivered safely. Your eldest son shows promise with sword work. You dictate responses between tactical decisions. Send money for winter supplies. Arranges training with the weapons master. Tell her you dream of home while planning other men's deaths. Night brings the sound of armor being cleaned and weapons being sharpened. Your men prepare for tomorrow while you plan for next week. The stones on your map reflect firelight like scattered stars. Each represents hundreds of souls whose names fill reports you file and forget. Somewhere beyond these canvas walls, boys sharpen swords they may not live to dull. They trust your stone movements with their breathing bodies. They sleep on cold ground while you plan their morning from beneath wool blankets. The responsibility tastes like copper coins in your mouth. You have become mathematics made flesh. Every decision reduces to numbers on parchment. Every victory costs more than defeat. Every stone you move carries the weight of graves you will never visit. Tomorrow brings fresh reports and new stones to arrange. Level 9, the grandmaster. You hold the seal of Solomon's temple carved into white gold. When you press it into warm wax, armies move. The ring weighs nothing on your finger. The responsibility behind it has bent your spine into a permanent curve over maps and ledgers and letters that arrive at all hours demanding answers you stopped having years ago. Your chambers occupy the highest tower of the commandery. Stone walls 3 feet thick. Windows that face east toward Jerusalem, always east. The morning light cuts through them at the exact angle the architects planned 2 centuries ago. You wake before dawn, not from discipline, but because sleep abandoned you when you realized God's voice had become indistinguishable from your own thoughts. The ritual bath each morning, water heated by servants whose names you know, The ceremonial washing that began as purification and now serves as the only 15 minutes of silence in your day. Your body carries scars from Damascus and Antioch, and 3 sieges, whose names the chroniclers will spell incorrectly. The newest wound never quite healed. It opens again when the weather turns. You break fast alone. Bread and wine and reports from the Holy Land that arrive folded inside the robes of brothers who travel in pairs, always in pairs, never alone. The parchment smells of dust and frankincense and something else you cannot name but recognize as the scent of places where too many men have died too quickly. The morning chapter. 43 knights arrange themselves in the pattern prescribed by rule. You enter last. They rise as one body. The discipline is perfect. Their faces carry questions they will never ask aloud. The business of the order requires your seal on documents authorizing expenditures that would feed entire kingdoms. 15,000 marks of silver for transport ships, 8,000 for weapons, 2,000 for the construction of a hospital in Acre that may not exist by the time the money arrives. Your seal authorizes death. Each impression in wax represents men who will not return. You stopped counting after Hatin. The mathematics of sacrifice became abstract when the numbers grew too large for grief. The correspondence arrives in wooden chests, reinforced with iron. Letters from kings who write as equals, but expect answers as supplicants. Requests for loans from nobles who offer their souls as collateral. Reports from preceptories across Christendom, where brothers manage estates and collect tithes and train young men who believe God speaks directly to those who serve him with sufficient dedication. You remember believing that. The memory feels like someone else's life. The afternoon councils. Masters of the regional preceptories gather around the oak table your predecessor commissioned. They speak of recruitment numbers and agricultural yields, and the political implications of supporting one pope over another when 3 men claim the throne of St. Peter simultaneously. You listen, you decide. Your words become law across territories that span from Scotland to Cyprus. The evening prayers in the chapel. Your knees find the worn stones where you have knelt for 11 years. The Latin flows automatically. The words that once carried you beyond yourself now feel like administrative procedure. You recite the offices while calculating how many ships you can purchase with the donations from the French estates and whether the agreements with the Genoese will hold through another campaigning season. Your private study after Compline. The plans for the great expedition spread across tables made from trees that grew in the Holy Land. Routes marked in red ink, supply caches marked in blue, contingencies marked in black. The map shows distances your body remembers in aching joints and scars that throb when storms approach. You draft the letter that will summon the faithful to take the cross. The words must inspire men to abandon everything. Your pen scratches across parchment while you plan logistics for moving an army across 2,000 miles of hostile territory. The sublime and the mundane occupy the same sentences. Someone knocks, a young knight with eyes that still hold certainty. He carries reports that require your immediate attention. His face reminds you of your own reflection 25 years ago. Level 10, the crusade leader. Your name appears in papal bulls before your actual presence is requested. Cardinals speak it in hushed conferences 3 months before they summon you to Rome. You are the sword arm of Christendom, and everyone knows it before you enter the room. The Holy Father receives you in private chambers, where the walls hold maps marked with your previous victories. He traces routes with fingers that have never held a weapon. You stand while he sits. This is protocol, but you both understand the real dynamic. He needs you more than you need his blessing. Your seal appears on documents that move armies across continents. When you press it into wax, 20,000 men begin walking toward a horizon most will never see again. The weight of the seal in your hand is 4 ounces. The weight of what it commands is immeasurable. Kings send their sons to you now, not as hostages, as students. They want their heirs to learn warfare from someone who has never lost a campaign. You teach them how to read terrain, how to manage supply lines, how to keep men believing in God when they are dying of disease in foreign mud. You do not teach them how to sleep afterward. Your tent is larger than most village churches. Inside, you plan invasions across tables covered in silk maps drawn by scholars who have never left their monasteries. The distances they show are accurate. The suffering those distances represent is not annotated. Messengers arrive daily with reports from fronts you opened years ago. Some battlefields still bear your name. Some cities still burn at the mention of it. You read these reports during morning prayers, because this is when your mind is clearest, before the weight of the day settles into your shoulders. Your war council includes men who once commanded armies themselves. Now they defer to your judgment on matters they spent decades mastering. When you speak, they take notes. When you point to a map, they calculate supply requirements. When you stand, they know the meeting is over. You write letters to bishops requesting prayers for campaigns that exist only in your mind. The church responds by organizing special masses in cathedrals across Europe. Thousands pray for your success before you have decided what success means. Their prayers follow you into battles that may not happen for years. Your horse is bred specifically for carrying men who carry your responsibility. It stands perfectly still during the ceremony where new recruits swear oaths to follow you into the Holy Land. The horse has learned to ignore the sound of weeping. So have you. You receive intelligence from networks that span 3 continents. Merchants, pilgrims, and spies send word about enemy movements, political alliances, weather patterns that will affect your next advance. You process this information while breaking your fast, because strategic thinking requires the calm that comes before the day demands action from you. Your personal confessor has heard things that would break lesser men. He grants you absolution for decisions that preserve Christianity at costs that Christianity should never require. Neither of you discusses the contradiction. Both of you live with it. Foreign emperors send gifts acknowledging your power before you turn that power toward their territories. The gifts are beautiful. The messages they accompany are careful. Everyone understands that your friendship is preferable to your attention. You dictate your final instructions to scribes who have served you for decades. They know your voice better than your family does. The instructions concern battles to be fought after your death, victories to be won by men who are currently children playing with wooden swords. Across Europe, in a village whose name you will never learn, a boy watches his father sharpen a blade that has never drawn blood. The boy asks if he can hold it. The father places it in small hands and speaks of service, of honor, of God's will. The boy feels the weight and imagines glory. The cycle continues.